Good morning, everyone. I am here live again, talking about relationships and communication. Soon, Steve Zapata will hop in with us. Looks like it's a noisy day outside for me today this time. So we are going to dive deeper just this Wednesday on really looking at our attachments in relationships, how we struggle with finding deep connection with people we care about. Good morning, or good afternoon, whatever side of the planet you're on. Hello. Oh, everyone's starting to pop in. How lovely. I think Steve has just joined us. I'm sorry for my hand always in front of the camera. There we go. So this weekend, actually, I got a chance to do some connecting with people in other parts of the world. Hello, how are you? Good morning.
Excellent. Good morning.
Good.
So how are you? Looking really good in purple today?
Purple? Yes, I'm recovering. I actually just got back from Mexico. So I am a little tired from all my travels this past week.
You all feel very badly that you're tired from a trip to Mexico. Everybody should join in now and say, "Aw."
Aw. Good morning. Hello. Oh, my cousin hopped in. How exciting. It's lovely to see you this morning. Oh, and hi, Catherine. Wow, there's a lot of great faces this morning. So I think today is a great day to talk about connection and attachments to the outcome in your relationships, the way we communicate with attachments.
Oh, to the outcome. That's when we talk about attachment, so many of us think, it's how hard do I hold on? Not what am I expecting.
Right, exactly. And I think a lot of the times, I'll throw myself right under the bus today, because I literally found myself this weekend getting an opportunity to interview some of the most amazing minds in the medical industry regarding stem cell therapy. And so I was pushing really hard to interview as many people as possible. I even got a chance to run down to Ensenada, Mexico, and meet with some amazing doctors down there and interview a bunch of patients. And I'll tell you, I pushed really, really hard, and I am paying the price today. So I'm a little.
It was a working trip. You weren't just down there sitting in the sun going, "Hey, this feels really good."
I didn't even know I was in Mexico. I was inside a clinic all day long. Outside of, everyone being, speaking another language, it was pretty much, all work business. It was a lot of fun, though. I'm so grateful for what I get to do.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. When I really used to be on the traveling circuit with speaking, and people didn't understand. You'd say, "Hey, I'm going to Phoenix for the weekend," or "I'm going to Sacramento for the weekend," and to speak, and they'd go, "Oh yeah, have a great time." But you flew in, you had dinner, you did your speech, you had dinner, and you flew out, and you never went outside the hotel.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You do have to create space for that. This trip I couldn't. Usually I try to create, good morning, Kevin. I usually try to create space within the trip itself to tap into the community and really connect with people and, really embody the experience of being
Were you down there? Were you there for 4 days or 3 days or?
1 day.
1 day, in and out.
No, the whole trip was a festival that was going on in California. So I got to interview a bunch of doctors and work for a network that week and just really work with them. So that trip was actually 4 days. And then I tacked on, because it was so close to Mexico and it was a theme for the weekend, I had an opportunity to meet with a doctor. So I definitely ran down there and did that. So I am to circle back to the whole point of why I brought it up, is I was attached to being able to get everything done and push, and it's really fascinating how we are attached to the outcome of being healthy and not giving ourselves the break. And I barely ate over the weekend, and I got the consequences for my actions. I ended up with a little bit of a cold.
And that's
news.
That is exactly it. We have to take care of ourselves along the way, and sometimes we get that busy.
Yes, and it was exciting.
So
I'm grateful. I would never do it. I wouldn't do anything different. Maybe eat, but it was totally exciting. But yeah, so I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize if everyone's having a hard time hearing me or anything like that. It's just a little nasally.
No, you sounded really good. You look really nice. That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody says, yay.
Excited to be here. And so I really want to focus this time today on helping people understand the two sides of attachment. Like when somebody is putting on attachment onto you, how you actually protect yourself when someone's trying to make you do things that you don't really, maybe doesn't resonate with you or don't really want to do because they're, putting in a space of resistance. Or, if you're the person who's like, like me this weekend, really got to get this all done. I've got a short window and I just really push, and how unhappy a happy experience you can make that resistance within something that's so joyful and, create that pain. So I wanted to talk about those two things and how we project that onto each other in our relationships and how we, really put dog on each other. I call it dog, duty, obligation, and guilt. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that before, but it's—
I have not. That's good. Duty, obligation, and guilt.
Yeah, little dog.
That's what my mother always did.
Well, even, dog's not necessarily always bad. Sometimes we need dog, get up in the morning, go to work, there's elements for that. But if you live in dog, you create a lot of resistance in your life and you're always in friction of finding joy. And really, we're here to have a joyful experience. We're here to connect and share and love each other for where we're at and help mirror each other back. And we miss out on a lot of that when we live in this obligation world or just feeling dog all the time. So can you relate to what I'm hearing?
Yeah, how does that manifest like in a female boyfriend, girlfriend, or a husband-wife scenario?
A lot of the times, resentment is established after it's been abused. So in a relationship, say it's a husband and wife, let's just go straight for the jugular. I'm expecting him to, bring in to support me, bring in money, whatever that means. It could be quality of time, it could be whatever your love language is, whatever your relationship agreement is. And if they stop doing it because of something in their life is changing or they're working through something, a story of resentment can start to brew. You're not there for me, or, you're not understanding, or you're not listening. I love that one. You're not listening to me. And they project this stuff on each other. In a man, it could be, maybe it's the expectation. I'm going into old barbaric roles here, he's cleaning the house or, whatever. Or maybe they're in a relationship where both bring in financial income and the expectations are, you pay these bills, I pay these bills. And all of a sudden, something happens and they're not able to comply with the agreement, and then resentment's built because it puts burden on the other. It's really being attached to roles being fulfilled, the agreement. And sometimes you're not in the flow of things. And so you miss out opportunities of collaboration or connection because you're so invested in them doing exactly what they said, how they said they would do it, and not letting the human experience come into the relationship and allow that flow of support to come through. I think in dating, a lot of the times it's just that opportunity to, they change. I always hear that, somebody changed. They're not the person they were in the beginning. Well, in the beginning of a relationship, you're learning about each other and you are putting your best foot forward because you're trying to explore. And it's always more fun to explore in a relationship than it is to get into the routine of trust and that safe place, that's that love. I always think of it as the lust versus the love in a relationship. If it's a healthy lust, it turns into love. I'm not lust is more of a selfish act. It's more of I'm in this because I'm getting something out of it, where love is a more collaborative experience. So it's kind of fun. Hello, getting a lot of good mornings this morning. Hello, 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 or hellos. So it's just really recognizing that element, how we don't create that space for each other to be in the flow.
And a lot of times we think of it as a big thing. When I do some of my work, I talk to people about the little parts of that. For example, what will you argue about? We talked about briefly last week, but what's worth arguing about? What's worth, and sometimes I've worked with couples who, like the wife said, I want the garbage out. And when the guy didn't take it out right away, she not only took it out, but then she held a grudge, and that created a lot of that negativity. But also it's one of those deals where when you create that, I always ask the question, if you're in a relationship and you're really not in tune with each other, every event, whether it's arguing over the garbage or whether it's arguing over money, whatever it's arguing over, that could be the final straw that breaks the camel's back and the other person says, that's it, I'm done, and walk away. So we have to be cautious of what we argue about or what we select to be in dispute about. That's really vital that we understand our expectations set us here. And then when the reality comes, we go, yeah, but, isn't that it? Yeah, but.
Yeah, let's put that even on steroids. If you recognize your attachments to someone taking out the trash, maybe there's something really deeper in there that you're not, you've been minimizing for so long, and then that trash becomes the think of a soda can, you shake it up and down, and then finally the lid explodes. That's that pressure moment that you're talking about. Finally the trash, it's really a menial thing. It has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that you had an attachment to something being done, and it wasn't, there was no follow through, or there was, this expectation that you don't love me because you don't do these things, whatever the story is. But it really does track back. You can follow back the number of times you may have minimized yourself in communication of expectation, and recognizing that that's that volcano moment where it explodes. Yeah, that's really important to understand when we talk about what are our expectations, right? What do we expect out of this relationship? What do we expect out of their behavior? What do we see as our role and their role? And a lot of times those have to be explored. They have to be talked about. They have to be shared. And if you don't talk about them, then it becomes that place of argumentation, or that place of a fractured relationship. So a lot of times, whether it's cooking, whether it's cleaning, whether it's even just, hey, I need to borrow the car to run out to this. Do you want to go with? And if the people say no, I don't really want to go often enough, then it becomes a, why don't they want to spend time with me? And they read things into it that don't have any bearing. Oh, yeah, isn't that it? Yeah, we're good at self-sabotage. Exactly. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, that's a brilliant point. Yeah, how we literally interact can really stimulate the outcome. So if you have those little mini attachments along the way, you're literally putting someone in a space of disappointing you because you're already invested in them behaving a certain way. And I think a lot of the times, if we could just say a simple thing is, I really would like you to come with me. Then the person can feel that your desire of the attachment is like, oh, they want to spend time together. It's not about the errand and not wanting to do it alone. It's about the fact that they want, connection. So it really, that person can say, I really understand that, but I need to get this done. Can I meet with you later? Then the person's needs are met and your needs are met. It's a communication bond that really needs to happen.
Yeah, and that's part of what we teach and what we train all the time is, how do you make things work? And the answer is, you don't ever make things work. You allow them to come together, you communicate that they come together, and then you work at helping them come together. As soon as I try and force something, when I use the term make, I want to make this work, then we're forcing it in. I was just helping my wife with a giant puzzle, and what I see, I'm not a puzzle person in any way, shape, or form. So I get a piece and I put it there and I'm like, close, no cigar, and she'll just take another piece and plop it in, But if I tried to force that into that real close puzzle piece, it's just going to mess up something else. It's going to mess up the puzzle. It's going to mess up all the rest of the puzzle pieces that are supposed to go together. So just think of it in that terms. Every day we have a puzzle we have to solve with our partners. Every day we have to understand that their day isn't like our day. My day of frustration isn't like her day of frustration. And we all have our frustrations throughout the day. And that's critical, that when we start to see each other's frustrations, that we also allow them to be frustrated, and then try and help them through that frustration, because it's a life event every day. If we understand that it's a life event, we will soften all of our tendencies, and we'll soften what we expect, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, creating that space of letting someone to meet you halfway versus you pushing a situation and forcing communication or forcing the connection can actually work against you. It can totally explode in your face. So I think it's absolutely.
I had mentioned something to Tamra earlier. I was working with somebody online, and they had said something about the anger that happens when a relationship may fall apart, or expectations don't happen, or jealousy intercedes. And it was how it was a husband was absolutely threatening physical violence against the wife, and how they had to hire a bodyguard to come in and protect the wife for a few days while this guy got his act together. But that's when we talk about, that's not really love. If what I'm doing is pursuing you, threatening you, chasing you, that's not love. There's a lot more to that. And love never hurts you. Love never wants, even if you break up with somebody, even if you've got your heart totally destroyed, you don't you might harbor hard feelings. It hurts like crazy, but you don't say,
Right.
I'm going to get even with you. Then it wasn't love. You had something completely different in your life, right?
And that one's very obvious. I mean, not to minimize the experience. I think there's also a lot of subtle ones. I was working with a client the other day, and she was sharing with me, these subtle things. She's like, is it just me? Or is it really like he's not showing up and not caring? And I'm like, no, that's truly hurtful. And it's okay to walk away from that. And I think, either you've had conversations around it, you've communicated your feelings and you've expressed your desires, and there's still, it's not you have to do these things, but you recognize that they're not even giving you, they say they're sorry, but they're really not giving any collaborative experience. That's an indication that they're not interested in meeting you halfway. So it's not about you, it's just not a match. Your love languages aren't the same, your ability to communicate the way you both need, it's just not a match. And it's okay that that happens. You get to learn from that and realize that this match is just an opportunity to learn what doesn't work versus what does. And so you get to play with
Yeah,
that
and
opportunity, not make it a punishment.
yeah, that's really critical too. If someone keeps apologizing, hey, I'm really sorry I did this, and then they repeat the behavior. You look at them the second time and they apologize, and then they repeat the behavior. If they're not willing to fix the behavior, then they're not really sorry, and they're not committed to repairing where they're at. They want to be in control, they want to be dominant, but they don't necessarily want to come back together. They have their hierarchy, they have their position in the relationship, and it's like, hey, yeah, I'm really sorry I did this to you, I'm really sorry I said that. Well, you said it yesterday too. I know, and I didn't mean it yesterday, and I don't mean it today, so I'm sorry. And then they say it again tomorrow. You have to start questioning that. Boy, that's a place, like she said, subtleties.
Yeah, and maybe they're forcing themselves to be someone they're not, and they're not conscious they're doing it. So it's not necessarily even intentional or malicious. I think a lot of the times we run around playing victim and saying, well, he was so mean, da da da. Well, there were signs along the way that he was probably not connecting, or she was probably not connecting to you, and you stayed in it too long. So then the anger brews and you have this resentment story. And there's really this cool opportunity to sit there and go, it was obvious we weren't a match, or things weren't going well, Excuse me.
And be aware too that some people love to play the victim. Some people absolutely love. They'll put you in a position that they love to play the victim. They'll make you do things. They'll manipulate you in such a way that they can now say, look what they've done to me. Look what they've done to me. And then they go tell all their friends or their relatives or whoever else, hey, they're doing this to me. And those people, a lot of times that's a personality flaw, and you're probably not going to get past that. It's just something you need to be aware of. Recognize what's going on with your partner. Certainly go for professional help at some point in time. But the understanding is that you have to start visualizing what you want out of a relationship. You have to start, and yes, you're going to have expectations, but then communication with that expectation comes the resolution, and it'll either be with where you're going or it'll be against where you're going, and then you have to make some decisions.
Absolutely, yeah. And some of it's, just getting an opportunity to have that healthy dialogue,
Yeah, communication is vital. We talk about it all the time. I talk about the difference in communication between men and women, but I also talk about, the words you use, and that's, I use a real obvious thing. I said, and I'm trying to think of what it is now, but it's your beauty is timeless, right? So I say, boy, Tamra, your beauty is timeless. And she says, well, that makes me feel really good. But I could turn it around and say exactly the same thing with different words, which is, hey, your face could stop a clock. And that's not the same thing at all, is it? No, that's probably not the same thing, yeah. But you see, that's an obvious manipulation of words, but a lot of times it's the subtle manipulation of words that we don't either understand we're using, right, or we don't understand why they're using it against us. And those are things we have to start understanding, and communication with that. Asking them, did you know that could have hurt my feelings? Or do you know that did hurt my feelings? Or do you know that this made me feel this way? Or I'm feeling this way because you said this that way. All those things come into play. And so your expectations also have to carry the power and the burden of communication to what you're expecting and hoping for.
Right. I've had, a lot of people talk about feeling parented, where, a spouse or a mate is sitting there going, hey, don't forget to da 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 da. Instead of saying that, you could say something like, Have you ever, do you need help or with that? Or is there anything I can do to support you around that? Or did you think about asking the doctor these questions? Or do you want to role play questions you'd like to ask your boss? Or there's so many other ways to support versus saying, don't forget, because that's like our parental programming. And we start going into resistance and we get angry and we sit there, we tone back. We'll sit there and go, we don't even realize we're tripped up. We don't even realize we're in that experience. We start really having tone in our voice and we're like, what do you mean I have tone? I'm not, you just said something very hurtful and I'm reacting to it. They didn't realize they said something hurtful, and so it's like
That's
really,
right.
there's
Right.
so many fine layers in communication that it's like you said, the order of the words make a difference, or maybe it's even the approach and there's a tone in the words, or there's a facial expression, or there's just so many layers to it. And so I think if we are more, gracious and are aware of how we show up, it gives us a chance to work through some of those things. We're not going to be perfect. Nobody is. But to really recognize the resistance. Are you perfect?
She said I wasn't perfect. I think she was trying to hurt my feelings.
You are perfect. Perfectly broken like
Hey, see, there you go. Now I feel better.
So I just think it's really a cool way to recognize, when somebody does mirror back something and sit there and they all of a sudden have tone in their voice, you can say, wait a minute, did I say something, or did I maybe put words in order where it created that reaction? Not that you were intentionally trying to do it, but it gives you an opportunity to see, that what I said was kind of not necessarily what I meant to say. And it can really create this really cool experience of deeper connection.
Awareness, that's what you have to walk into every day with, an awareness of how you're affecting that person that you're with. My second marriage, my wife would come home and scream and holler at me, and she would be screaming and holler at me about things that happened at work. So she'd be talking about it, and then she'd take it out on me, and I'd go, hey, why are you screaming at me rather than the people at work? And she said, because I can't do that to the people at work, but I can do it to you. And you went, really? That makes no sense to me, because why would you upset the person you supposedly love, but never want to upset the people you work with? And so those are things that we have to be aware of. That's, again, an obvious challenge or an obvious flaw in that situation. But the subtleties come through with the fact that if I say something, if Tamra and I were together and I said something to her and she got that look like, hey, and I'd go, oops, if I'm aware, I might go, I'm sorry, did I just say something, right? And so trying to maintain that awareness is always good. By the same token, our partners can always remind us. My wife does a good job of reminding me when I've hurt her feelings or used the wrong tone. Sometimes she just clams up, and that always bothers both of us. But sometimes she'll just say, hey, that was rude, or you know what, that was mean, or you know what, your tone, and she'll say that, your tone really said this. And I'm like, yeah, well, and I always go back to, if you know my heart, honey, you know that I didn't mean that, because that's not how it works, but it made her feel that way. And so we have to be aware of how we communicate. We have to be aware of what comes across, and then when the other person brings it back to us, don't be offended. I think 90% of the time I'm not necessarily put off. Sometimes you do get put off, and so you reply in the same negative manner, but you try hard not to, and she does the same thing. And that's crucial to a successful relationship, is not escalating those kind of events, right?
Yeah, and a lot of that, what you're talking about, relates to the story of shame. Our ego trips up and we sit there and go, there's, the way you communicated that to me, and the spill off, like you were talking about earlier, the spill off from work, when you're at work and then you come and shift into a family life, you may not have arrived completely. So you're kind of still in the old circuitry or the old routine of work still, and your transition is a little delayed, and it takes time. You're still processing. So I think we need like a pause or grace to enter a new stage or a new experience. And I think it's really hard, because a lot of times when a mom's been working hard or a dad's been working hard at home with the kids, they're ready to be tagged out of the relationship, and we're having a hard time in that transition. So it's like you get really, caught up in that. So, but even, like what you were talking about, and going back to the story of shame, we sometimes hear tone that didn't even exist, because we're investing in hearing things that, just the order of the words, or where our mindset is, we make up that there was tone, or that the words they used, we only heard pieces of the words because we're not present to the experience, and then we make up that we've been attacked. So there's a lot of times it's, it goes either way. It's not necessarily always the person communicating. Sometimes it's the person listening. So you have to check in, like, am I in a safe place to hear what, to be in this minute right now, what's going on? Or am I really still at work? Or am I like not awake yet? Or what's going on for me? Those self-checks really help you really learn whether I'm taking things personal or there's something here for me to work through. It's really important to know yourself. This is that whole discernment piece. You have to know yourself in order to be in a relationship where you're not constantly having friction. It can be very challenging.
So how do I get to know myself is the question, Tamra.
Yeah. A lot of the times, like getting support. I really am a big advocate of getting someone who's safe to mirror you back. Having someone can say, to you like, oh, for me, it's always been, traditional therapy or, a mentor of some kind. So it's always good to have someone to play back what you're saying so that when you're in it outside the experience, you can digest it better. Because when we hear it in our own heads, we're going to replay the story that we experienced from our perception. We're not going to have that space to step outside of ourselves. So like our program here where we're trying to formulate for the workshops, and the one in October is already sold out. The one that's coming up in January is an opportunity to work together. You can have moments where you can do these little practice studies and actually literally get a chance to hear what's going on for me. Why am I acting this way? Where is it coming from? What's a deep-seated belief that I have around this issue? And really unwind some of these faulty programmings or the faulty belief systems that we've established and that we think are who we are. They're really not. You get an opportunity to see the other side of it.
Yeah, I'm blessed at this point in time, and I guess I say I'm blessed within myself because I've got 3 or 4 people in my life right now who are not afraid to tell me hard lessons. If I'm struggling with something, they'll go, "You want the truth? Can you handle the truth?" Because they're so used to people whine and complain to them that when they hear it back, the people get mad at them. And so they're cautious when they get to know me because they go, "Do you really want to know, Steve, or will you be upset?" I had one guy, and he said, "If you really want to know the answer to that, we'll sit down and talk sometime." But he says, "Now's not the place because if you go off, I don't want to be the guy who gets embarrassed at a restaurant." And
Right.
that was funny to me because I try and take personal criticism, to the heart because I've always said if enough people call you an asshole, then you're probably an asshole somewhere, right? You don't have to be to everybody, but to those people you are. So when we look at what happens, if enough people see you away, then you have to grab that trait and say, that's probably who I am to them, and now I got to figure out how I stop being that to them. So when people ask me, "Do you really want to know the answer to this, or would you really like to know the solution to this?" I go, "Absolutely." And they go, "Can you handle it?" I go, "Please try me, let's go with that." But you have to be open to accepting that criticism. You have to be open to that growth, because it's really hard.
Uh-oh. Did we leave her dear
One of the
friends?
crucial things we end up doing is
We lost you for
blocking people from being honest to us, right?
Steve, we lost you for just a minute there.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I lost you.
Can you hear me?
Can everybody else hear Tamra?
Give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me.
Yep. She's gone from my end. I'm going to get off. Say something else, would you? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. I can hear you. You just can't hear me?
No. All right, so I'm going to get off, and I'll see if I can get back on. Hold on, let me see if I find something up here. I don't know what those are. Nope, that just reversed the camera. All right, I'll sign off. You talk without me. Have a good time.
Okay, bye. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm not sure exactly what happened there, so hopefully we won't have that happen again. But thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And please, by all means, please send me a message at Tamra@tamrablankenship.com.